We now move to the second question, question number 112, which has been asked by Honorable PP Banchaba to the Minister of Basic Education. The question is about the progress that the Department of Basic Education has made in eradicating bucket toilets in schools. Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Honorable Kabantaba, your question is a complex one, but I want to endeavor to answer it as honestly as possible. Since taking office, I have prioritized strengthening efforts to address the critical issue of unsafe sanitation facilities in our public schools. In fact, I have made this a priority in the priorities of the 7th administration to make sure that we eradicate all pit toilets in particular by the end of this financial year, which ends in March. Because we know that the existence of pit toilets in our schools is not only a danger to our learners, but also is an issue of dignity. And so the continued existence of these toilets poses a significant risk to learners' health, safety, and therefore requires action. I know that the member had asked about specifically bucket toilets. So I want to provide a historical context here. A school needs register that was done in August 1997 indicated that there were 27,864 primary, secondary, and combined schools, and of those, 278 had bucket toilets. When then we went fast forward to 2018, the DBE initiated another audit of what we would call unsafe pit toilets. And the number that we realized was that there were 4,700 pit toilets that were not successfully eradicated. So that is the backlog that we are dealing with. And so right now, as things stand, according to the audit that we have, there are 259 sanitation projects that need to be completed by March 2024. And so we want to make sure that we do these things. And that's why in my provincial visits to the provinces, I'm making it clear that no province and no Department of Education in the provinces should be sending money back to Treasury when not spending their infrastructure budgets, when we still have massive infrastructure backlogs. And we also need to be creative, Honorable Member, about how we use this. We've got various partnerships. DBE does work in terms of eradicating these pit toilets, but also we are working with departments such as Public Works. We want to encourage the private sector to help us come on board so that we can accelerate the eradication of pit toilets as a matter of urgency, not only for safety, but for dignity, both for learners and educators. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Honorable PP Kamanchaba.
Angibonge mhlali ngaphambili. Ngqongqoshe. Inkinga yamanzi ngenye yezinselelo izikole ezibhekene nayo. Kanti lokhu kuphinde kube nomthelela ezinhlelweni zokukhucululwa kwendle. Ngabe ungqongqoshe unawuphi umzamo wokuqeda izinselelo zamanzi ezikolweni? Ngiyabonga.
Honorable Minister.
Ndiyabulela Honorable Member ngombuzo wakho. Unyanisile kakhulu ngoba kaloku ingxaki esibe nayo into yobana nangona siyefuna ukuzisusa ii-pit toilets nee-pit latrines kwiindawo ezininzi, ingakumbi kwiindawo ezisezilalini apho khona kungekho manzi, oye ufunekise into yobana kufuneka kube khona ii-temporary structures ezo sometimes zingamaintainwa ziphele ke ngoku zisenza abantu into yobana kufuneka baphinde basebenzise ii-pit toilets zakudala. Yiyo loo nto ke in our strategy as a department, what we are doing is we are asking even the implementing agents to make sure that we are utilizing even structures that do not require water. We are a water scarce country. There are ways and means to make sure that we've got dignified sanitation options that are not waterborne, so that we can make sure nokuba ngaba usequmbu, nokuba ngaba useqwaqwa, uba ngaba siyile phayana so eradicate pit toilets, siyayazi into yobana abantu bazawukwazi ufumana ii-toilets ezisemgangathweni kuye ezenza isidima.
Enkosi Ngqongqoshe Lungehloniphekile Mapholova.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Well, I'm battling with my gadget here. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. The department and actually, it's a very sore issue, this one. The department aimed and actually committed to eradicate all inappropriate sanitation by 2025. Now, can the minister please tell this House the status of this commitment in both KwaZulu-Natal and Eastern Cape province in particular? And I'm particularly interested in the pit latrines because I heard the first part of the response of the Honorable Minister. These go hand in hand, you can't separate them. Buckets and pit latrines. Kids are dying in schools. Thank you very much, Speaker.
Thank you, Mapoloba, Honorable Minister.
Honorable Speaker, thank you very much. I do perhaps, maybe I wasn't quite clear in the first response to Honorable, the first member. We don't, as far as we know, have bucket toilets in schools anymore. What we do have though is pit toilets in our schools. The audit that we have indicates that there's 259 pit toilets that are still left in the country. The biggest problems we face are in the Eastern Cape and in Limpopo. We have a strategy to make sure that we are supporting those provinces, not only in spending their infrastructure budgets, but also making sure that they clear the backlog as quickly as possible. The honorable member is absolutely correct. We've given ourselves the date of March 2025 to eradicate all pit toilets. But in addition to that, I want to also assure the members of this House that this is a continuous project. You can't say your backlog was over 4,000 pit toilets then, and then you simply say, well, then now we are done. Once we have cleared that backlog, we have to continuously do an audit to make sure that our schools remain safe, so that we can see if there are new pit toilets that are erected, that we can make sure that those pit toilets have been closed, they've been sealed, and that proper sanitation is in our schools. This is something that we cannot lose track of, because as I said, it's not just about safety, it is also about dignity for both learners and our educators.
Thank you, Minister. Honorable Ngwango.
Thank you, Speaker. Honorable Minister, over the past few years, tragic stories of hundreds of young children drowning in pit latrines have made headline news in South Africa. In 2019, President Cyril Ramaphosa launched a 6.8 billion rands sanitation appropriate for education, they called it SAFE program, to provide sufficient sanitation facilities to 4,000 schools. However, almost 6 years later, since the launch of the program, little has been achieved. More than 3,500 schools, which is not too far off from the initial 4,000 schools, still have illegal pit latrines. The question is this: whether you have made any strides to investigate what those funds were used for, given that the problem still persists. Also, whether any financial compensation has been given by the department or provided to the families of the deceased learners. Thank you.
Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Yes, Honorable Kwangwa is right. The SAFE program was launched by the President back in 2018. And this is the audit that I'm talking about, that when an audit was done back then, over 4,000 pit toilets were identified. Where are we right now? We have identified from that backlog then that we are sitting with over 250 toilets left. So progress has been made. But I'll be the first to admit that it simply is not good enough. And we cannot still have children who are drowning in pit toilets in 2024, 30 years into our democracy. So this is why this matter is a priority for me and the department. But to insinuate that, however, the department has not made any strides in 6 years is a bridge too far, Honorable Member, because that money has been spent, albeit it has been spent very slowly. And we are now left with under 300 pit toilets that still need to be done. And in terms of money that you asked, what were the funds used for? A lot of them were used for this kind of project. But I also want to indicate that our big challenge, Honorable Members of the House, is implementing agents who take way too long to do these projects. They are given the contract to go and clear backlogs, and they are simply not doing enough. And so one of the things that I would like to do is introduce competition into the space, so that if you do work with the government and you do not fulfill what you are meant to do, then you get blacklisted, because it's not good enough for us to keep using the same implementing agents who are not doing the work that they're meant to do. And then we must come and account, yet we've already paid for the work to be done and implementing agents are not doing so. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Maimane.
Ke a leboga modulasetulo. Minister, I think we both can agree, and I want to celebrate your commitment to the eradication of pit toilets, given that they're an emblem of what the apartheid government has left behind. The question I want to put forward is to say, given that there's new infrastructure that's been built, there's a new trend where we're finding more portable toilets being built in schools and poor infrastructure, which is further inculcating this culture of separate development, particularly in township schools. So my question is whether the minister has a plan to eradicate portable toilets so that we don't end up in 6 years now discussing those toilets. And secondly, if the minister, in my role in appropriations, would be willing to come with us to a rural school so that we can give more money to eradication of this particular project. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would absolutely be happy to go with the committee to any school. In fact, I want to make this plea to the members of the House that we depend on you as members of Parliament to go and do oversight on the ground, so that we don't just rely on PowerPoint presentations to be told that these things are done. That when members of Parliament go do oversight, then you are able to give us feedback so that we can actually be a responsive government, so we can go where the problem is, so that we can scratch where the itch is. So I would encourage as many members of Parliament to do oversight and to show us where the problem is. And Honorable Maimane talks about poor infrastructure and workmanship, and it's a big problem because you're spending billions of rands essentially building things that are going to break in a couple of years' time. And as you say, it does entrench the notion of separate development, because these are mostly in poorer schools and township schools. And that's why I do want to emphasize that with the work that I'm doing with the Public Works and Infrastructure Department, that we do introduce competition in the space, because I do believe that there have been certain implementing agents who have been slacking because they know that they can rely on government tenders for many, many years. Regardless of the poor shoddiness of their work, they still rely on government tenders. But if we open up the system and have proper implementing agents who know that there will be consequences if you don't deliver proper work. There will be consequences if you don't deliver work on time. There will be consequences if money goes missing when you've been entrusted to do public work. And my strong recommendation is simply this: if you do business with the state and you don't do a good job, you must be blacklisted. It cannot be that the same people who do shoddy work in the Eastern Cape will turn up in Gauteng and do shoddy work there again. There has to be consequence management with our implementing agents. And we've got to open up the space, because the monopoly is what is costing us, because people know that there's no consequence management.
Honorable Minister, if
Thank
you
you.
can round up, your time is up. Thank you. We now move to the third question. This is the question that has been asked to the Minister of Basic Education by Honorable C. Jordan. The question is about the impact of the decision to stop the issuing of a 9.8 billion tender on the provision of meals to learners at a provincial level. Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I'm going to try and take the House into my confidence on this matter. Honorable Jordan, thank you for the opportunity for me to be able to address Parliament on the issue. So the Department of Basic Education has, firstly, I think I want to assure members of this House that there has been no disruption in the National School Nutrition Program. I have seen people saying me haltering this process is somehow going to affect the school nutrition program. It is not true. Currently, how the system works is that some provinces have a centralized system of procurement of their nutrition, and some provinces have a decentralized system. The Department of Basic Education about 2 or 3 years ago undertook a process of looking to see how they can modernize the National School Nutrition Program. When I came into office, I asked questions about the modernization strategy. When I asked questions, my question was simply this: this is a multi-year tender with a price tag of 10 billion rand. And it is important for me as a new minister to do my due diligence for two reasons, really. Number one, I need to make sure that the 9.7 million learners who rely on these meals, some of whom actually have that only that meal to depend on that day, I need to make sure that as DPE, we do not contribute to learners not getting their school nutrition. And therefore, I needed to satisfy myself that in fact, this strategy is one that will make sure that no child goes hungry in school. The second thing is I needed to make sure that I do my due diligence in terms of making sure, have we met Treasury regulations, which speak to how direct grants to provinces are handled? And that process is ongoing. And so that is the process I have said. I have instructed the department to stop all and every step that has been taken thus far on this matter until I have satisfied myself that it is one, the correct strategy to follow. Number two, no public money will be lost. Number three, no child in any school will go hungry. Up until I'm satisfied that those things can be true and can be met, I have asked the department to halt this process until due diligence is done, and I'll brief cabinet accordingly once that is done.
Thank you, Honorable Minister.